Peter Stursberg was born in China in 1913. His mother was half Japanese and half Irish, and his father was a member of the colonial administration, the British colonial administration in China. So he grew up in a curious kind of imperial household of mixed race, and ultimately ended up in Canada when he was very early 20s and started his career as a journalist. He had become one of the very first people working for the CBC News. This is around 1938, and the CBC had just set up a news department. And of course, like he would have been at the time in 1938, 25 years old, say. So like everybody, every journalist of the period, when the war broke out, the number one thing they wanted to do was they wanted to go to cover the war. So finally in 1942, they agreed to send him, and in early 1943, he arrived in London. He covered them first of all in the invasion of Sicily, and then as they progressed up Italy and across the so-called Hitler line, so he followed the Canadian troops all through Italy. Then he followed the Canadian troops for the liberation of Holland, and then he ended up in Berlin just shortly after VE Day. And through the course of it all, of course, what he was doing was he was reporting on how the war was going from the point of view of Canada. And so it was the first time that people could actually hear what war sounded like. There's a famous piece of my father broadcasting from the Leary line in Italy, where you can hear him say, "Listen to the guns roar."
Just listen to those guns roar.
And then you hear the guns in the background. So it was actually allowed, and the Canadians were the only ones who had this technology, it actually allowed the Canadians to bring people into the sound of the war in a way that had never happened before.
We're in the attic of an old Italian farmhouse that overlooks the front as it's on a slight ridge. I'm standing here looking out of a hole in the wall that was made by a shell during the fighting here 2 days ago. This house, though, hasn't really been very badly damaged. It's the only one standing that I've seen for miles around.
Peter Stursberg landing in Sicily was the first time a Canadian broadcaster had covered Canadian troops on the move. He arrived just in time to cover the liberation of one of the key objectives of the Canadian force that landed in Sicily, the town of Agira, which was liberated in late July 1943. And so he came basically the evening of the battle and was able to get there when the town square had been liberated, and the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada pipe band was playing, the church bells in the background. It was able to broadcast for the first time Canadians liberating European city. After years of really bad news in the wartime news coming from the CBC and elsewhere, this was quite an event. During the Second World War, radio was the only electronic media. There was print reporting, there was certainly newsreel and film that had been around for some time, and photographic reporting was certainly available. But radio was at the cutting edge of technology. It was a way to bring, with only a few hours delay in some cases, or at the least a day or more a delay, reporting of real live sounds from the battlefield into people's living rooms in a way that had never been the case before. This was done through very bulky, by today's standards, portable recording units that weighed dozens of pounds each, that were carted on a jeep that could then be brought to a mobile recording van and all of this sort of thing. But the result was that broadcasters like Stursberg were able to lay live commentary over events as they happened.
It's a great honor for the School of Journalism and Communication to host the annual Peter Stursberg Foreign Correspondence Lecture. We're in the business here of training young journalists, and down the road, some of them will likely end up reporting from conflict zones. The Stursberg Lecture Series is one way of ensuring that when they do, the journalism they produce will be smart and meaningful. Hearing from the best of today's foreign correspondents can't help but inspire journalists of the future to do their best, and hopefully their journalism will also contribute to more informed decision-making around the world.
Welcome to the 8th Annual Peter Stursberg Foreign Correspondence Lecture, hosted by Carleton University School of Journalism and Communication in partnership with CBC Ideas. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Carleton University, where I'm located today, is situated on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. And wherever you find yourself today, I would encourage you, take some time to think about the land that you occupy. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the director of the School of Journalism and Communication. The Stursberg is one of our major keynote events, named for legendary war correspondent Peter Stursberg, and meant to examine the nexus between journalism and conflict. This year, faced with the gravity of the Israel-Gaza conflict and the crucial role of journalists in bearing witness and shaping the narrative, we decided to hold a lecture series. Today's installment with Palestinian journalist Shrouq Aila, who joins us from Gaza, is the first in that series. Tomorrow, at the same time, we'll be joined from Tel Aviv by columnist Gideon Levy from Haaretz. Peter Stursberg was among the first to cover Canada's troops in the field during the Second World War. That military conflict unfolded in parallel with an unprecedented genocide of civilians, the Holocaust. But few, if any, of the war correspondents of Stursberg's era fully understood the nature of the genocide being committed by Hitler's Germany. Not until journalists reached the gates of Dachau and the other death camps and witnessed the horrors firsthand. Only then did the world begin to understand. Today, brave journalists like Shrouq Aila are bearing witness for the world in Gaza in real time, despite the relentless targeting of journalists by Israel's military, itself a war crime. Because of journalists like Shrouq, we can no longer say that we didn't know the full extent of the horror. The unresolved question is what the world does with that knowledge. We are so fortunate to hear from Shrouq, who's using technology, her journalistic skills, and her determination to bring us face to face with Gaza, where journalists are quite literally dying to tell the story. Peter Stursberg used the latest technology of the day to infuse his radio reports with the sound of the battlefield in the Second World War. And he was the last living Canadian correspondent from the Second World War when he passed away at the age of 101 in 2014. His children, Judith Lowry and Richard Stursberg, created two initiatives with Carleton's journalism program to honor their father. The first is the Peter Stursberg Award in Conflict Journalism and Media Studies. The award is intended to help a student in Carleton's Master of Journalism program complete a thesis or journalism project. This year, MJ student Sarah St. Pierre is using the award to support her research on the concept of conflict writ large involving Indigenous communities and mining companies. The second initiative created by the Stursberg family is an endowment in support of today's event, the annual Peter Stursberg Foreign Correspondence Lecture. Over the years, we've heard from some incredible correspondents: Lise Doucette, Janine De Giovanni, Adrian Arsenault, Larry Madowo, Naima El-Bahar, Giancarlo Fiorelli from Bellingcat, and last year, Veronika Melkazarova from Ukraine. Because this lecture celebrates the legacy of Peter Stursberg's work as a war correspondent, I'd like to invite Richard Stursberg, Peter's son, to join us now on behalf of the Stursberg family to say a few words. Richard.
Thank you, Alan. I'm thrilled that this is the 8th anniversary of this lecture. I'm very, very pleased at the quality of the people that we've been able to attract to talk about this extraordinarily difficult and important subject. I just wanted to say a thanks, first of all, to Carleton University, and particularly to you, Alan, for having managed this lecture series so brilliantly. Also, thanks to Nella Ayed and to all the people at Ideas at the CBC for turning this into a broadcast once the lecture is concluded. This year's lecture focuses, as Alan was saying, on the conflict in Gaza. I think we're very lucky and to have Shrouq with us here today, and I just wanted to say thank you to her for coming, and we look forward very much to hearing what you have to say. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Richard, for your role here today, and through you, thanks to your family for the generous support of the Stursberg Award and this lecture. As Richard mentioned, the moderator of today's event is one of Canada's best-known foreign correspondents and public intellectuals, the CBC's Nella Ayed. Nalla was born in Winnipeg to Palestinian parents and spent part of her childhood in the Middle East. Later, she worked for the Canadian Press. And I'm proud to say she is also a graduate of Carleton's Master of Journalism program. In 2002, Nalla joined the CBC and reported from Amman, Baghdad, Beirut, and across the region, and later spent close to a decade covering world events from London. In 2012, she published her award-winning memoir, A Thousand Farewells. She's now the host of CBC Radio's nightly program, Ideas, which is a partner in this event, and seeks to rebroadcast parts of this lecture series. Nalla, we are very lucky to have you with us today. Nalla will formally introduce our guest speaker, engage her in a conversation following the presentation, and then take your questions. And just a reminder to those watching on YouTube, please use the QR code to reach the Slido app where you can pose questions. And with that, I would like to turn this over to our moderator, Nalla Ayed. Nalla.
Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you, Richard. It's really an honor to be here to mark, for me, the 6th year that we've worked together on this important event on the journalism calendar. Thank you very much for having us back. And it's wonderful to be the moderator again for this year's Stursberg lecture. Without further ado, I'd like to spend the time that I have here now to introduce our first 2024 Stursberg lecturer. Shrouq Aila is a Palestinian journalist, producer, and researcher reporting from the Gaza Strip. In 2020, she graduated with a master's degree in journalism. It was after she had joined Ayin Media, an independent production company specializing in professional media services whose clients include everyone from the BBC to Al Jazeera documentary to UNICEF and Al Arabi television. Late last year, Shrouq took charge of Ayin Media after her husband, Rushdie Sarraj, a co-founder of the company, was killed in an Israeli strike on their home in southwest Gaza City. Even today, she continues to cover the war and its devastating impact on Gaza's residents, despite her own home having been destroyed, despite having to live in a tent at one point, and despite being the mother of an infant. She has been published in The Intercept, The Daily Beast, among other places. Shrouq Aila is also this year's recipient of the Committee to Protect Journalists International Press Award, and she is joining us directly from Gaza. Please welcome Shrouq Aila.
Hi, Nahla. Hi, all who are just watching around. It's Shrouq Aila from Gaza Strip, basically from the southern side of the Gaza Strip. If I go first with my introduction, I am Shrouq Aila. I'm 30. I turned 30 during this genocide. I work as a forensic researcher and also a producer. I hold a BA in English language and MA in journalism. 3 years ago, I got married to my husband, who is a journalist and filmmaker, and he's also the co-founder of a media company, a company that is specialized in media production. And we got a baby. She just turned 2 years a few days ago. Um, um, like currently, I'm here at the southern side of the Gaza Strip, after being displaced from the north part of the Gaza Strip. Like I'm forcibly displaced, it's not a luxury actually. And I've been displaced to Rafah, which is in the far south of the Gaza Strip. Like I've been there for almost 5 months, um, in a room along with my siblings and their families, kids, and so. And then we had to evacuate from Rafah to the central side of the Gaza Strip because of the Rafah invasion that is still ongoing till now, till this moment. It's a military invasion in Rafah. It's been like almost 6 months. So we had no place actually to go first. So we had to go for a tent. And it is our first time for me and my family to be in a tent. Like I've never done camping before, and I cannot like describe it as a camping, It's never a camping, Like camping is a cutie when it comes to Fairview hours, and you have all of your equipment and the luxuries that you need to chill out. But it's never a camping. It's all about, trying to protect yourself in a makeshift tent that is just made out of fabrics, wood, and nylon, which is nothing, when it comes to heat, to cold, the shambles, bombings, rain, never. And then we got lucky, like a few 2 weeks, like in the past 2 weeks, we got lucky that we found an apartment. And why it is super like hard to find an apartment, that because the remain buildings in the Gaza Strip, especially in the north, in the south, it's just very few. So finding a building, like a building that is not burned or bombed, it's it's a privilege, to find it. And it took us almost like 5 months of find a place, a suitable place. And here we are.
Thank you for your introduction, Shrouq. I wonder if I could begin by asking you to just paint a picture of what has been going on today in Gaza. What's the latest news on this day today?
All right. So for the latest news, for us, it's getting out into routine, It is the same news, same massacres, same displacement for the people, same shortage of everything. The harshness of being displaced. Even if you are displaced in a tent or in an apartment, it is still displaced. It's not your place. You're paying fees for being, for renting, for example, and also you don't have your luggage, your items, and also there's something that I need to highlight and that people have to know, that when this war started, there is no electricity in the Gaza Strip. So even getting a house or whatever, and there is that problem of getting internet or getting electricity. So the light that I have here is that I charge the battery to make sure that I am visible in this meeting. Same goes for the internet. I charge the battery for the internet so I can get it. I have it for this meeting as well. So like everything you are doing, you have to do a lot of calculations in terms to get it in an appropriate way. But this is the everyday challenges. But it's never the same when it comes of being under attack. Absolutely. Like today I was filming in the Nusayrat, which is located almost in the north of the southern part of the Gaza Strip. So it is the closest city to the north. And I was filming, with foreigners who already got, clearance security clearance, to be in the area to give, to deliver a training for doctors and so. And, like suddenly everything went crazy. Like the artillery shellings were like, unimaginable. Like we cut everything and we just escaped because, like there is always that moment that everything goes crazy and you cannot predict anything. You just have to run for your safety. And you
Shrouq,
believing that.
Can you describe just what you saw in Nusayrat today? What did you see in the moments that you were actually on the ground there?
All right. So there is that, the sounds. So it was that the artillery shelling. What is really annoying in this that when they fire the missile, you hear it once it is just fired, and then you hear and then you keep counting, blah, 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 blah. Where is it falling, it is upon my head or not, that feeling. You have few seconds to think about if it is attacking you or not. What is your last words? And this is actually what happened with me today. And there is that sound between, that period between the shooting, and then the hitting. Like there are, like, let me say, almost 15 seconds. And 15 seconds is just enough, to think about your entire life. And let me say, at that moment I was unable to know where shall I escape and how and when, because you cannot see it. And but you are just hearing the sound, that there is that sound, like it's like whispers. And then you hear the hitting, which is a very massive explosion. And then there is for sure the smoke. And then like just followed with this, there is the series of the ambulances for sure. It's just a war zone, and yeah, and there is that. I'm sorry, I'm not romantic this moments actually, but you keep counting. This is shell number one, the muscles number one, number two, number three. You keep counting. It feels like you're counting flowers, but it's never the flowers. But you are just trying to maintain your mental health. Like otherwise, you're gonna go crazy, and you
So
have to.
let me pick up on that point. I definitely want to get into the details of the difficulties of reporting on the ground. But I am curious. I think it's been 403 days of this particular episode of violence in Gaza. I wonder, just could you just talk about how you're holding up? Speaking of mental health, how are you doing?
Frankly, like it is not just me, like everyone I'm chatting with this topic with, like everyone, like I receive the same answers that I already hold it inside, that there is always that thing that we are on hold, like your feelings, your anger, your tears, you keep it all on hold because we believe that we are not in a suitable place to collapse, to give yourself the the luxury of collapse. It's never a suitable time or place. And the lack of privacy, like sometimes I feel like when we were like together in one room in Rafah, and then we were like, all of us were almost like 19 in one room, like we used to sleep upon each other's. And there is also that tent, same number, like for let me say, for some extent I felt like I hate my family. I just needed privacy. even though if you have that privacy, you believe that if you are letting yourself to sink into depression, it means like you need months just to raise up once again. And when it comes to being under genocide, it's never about what do you feel. It's all about how to survive your day. So it's all about how to manage to survive my day, my essentials, food, water, the essentials, clothes. Wow, clothes is such a like getting clothes. Um, like those who are having new clothes, you can invade them for having those new clothes. So the issue that you don't let yourself to go for this actually. Like it feels like you are suppressing down every feeling you are holding inside because you believe if you break down, you will break down, and it's never a suitable time because you are always running for your safety.
Right. Yeah. Could we, Shrouq, take a step back to your career, the beginning of your career? Could you just talk briefly about the moment you realized that journalism is what you wanted to do? What was it that compelled you to become a journalist?
All right, so for being a journalist, actually, I have that sense, like first of all, being in a conflict zone, in a conflict area, there is always that sense of duty that hits you. Um, especially when you like, for example, there are people like saying like, "Sure, you speak English like in a good way. Why you are not using it to address the Western or the Eastern about the current situation in Gaza, to beat down the Israeli propaganda." So let me say there are lots of factors that brought me into journalism. If I start with documenting truth and reality, because in conflict zones like Gaza, there is often that shortage of verified information due to the restricted access for journalists. And by choosing journalism, I aim to document and share firsthand accounts of events that would otherwise go unreported or mispresented. And this contributes to a more accurate understanding of for our cause locally and globally. And also that sense of amplifying voice for those who for the voiceless, like to give them a platform to represent their suffering, resilience, their humanity, and sometimes to fostering empathy and potentially influencing people, but the public opinion and policy about being oppressed and being under occupation. And there is also that you know I hope so it will be go this way, that the promoting accountability. We all know that journalism can play a critical role in holding governments, organizations, and individuals accountable for their actions. And by documenting those attacks and violations and their consequences, journalists can bring attention to human rights violations and potentially, deterring future abuses. But, it's such a dream, I hope so. And in terms of, for sure, personally, it helped, like journalism helped me in professional growth. Like for example, in that a challenging environment that helped in building resilience and and also strengthening my research and storytelling skills and also about
but you talked about also just in that same idea, you talked about how your anger and the difficulty of just surviving. I'm just wondering how you manage all those frustrations and feelings while also trying to tell a story about what's going on.
the good thing the good thing about me that I'm a hard worker, and like frankly when it comes to work I just focus on work, and thanks God for the work actually, otherwise I will be drowning down with the depression, like literally. It's always great to get your mind busy with some work, otherwise the overthink gonna attacks you. And I try to recycle the anger inside me and put it in stories and put it in efforts and more efforts in spreading the word and spreading more stories about what is happening here in Gaza.
You talked about the sense of duty to spread the word, especially as you say, because you have the facility with the language and the knowledge of the situation. You've also expressed previously, a deep frustration about not being able to convey exactly to your audiences about what it's like to be in Gaza. For example, conveying the way it smells or the way it looks. Uh, you've wondered out loud, what the point is if you're unable to do that. So can you talk about how you answer your own question? What is the point? What is the aim, even with the shortcomings of the medium, the available media, to tell the story as it is?
All right. In the past 2 days, before 2 days, I was at the hospital. The hospital is housing the president. So you know that the president, it's for the live streaming, and also it provides you with with electricity to charge your laptop, phone, and also a decent internet connection if you want to upload some materials. And also those are my colleagues. Sometimes I have live streaming with democracy now, so I go there to do the live streaming. I've been there in the previous, like before 2 days, and what happened is that they bombed the hospital. They bombed the tent just right back the president. And when we are saying that bombing a tent, it doesn't mean like just bombing that square of the tent, because there is always shambles that fly around, and that risk of shambles, especially when everyone in this hospital is being protected by tents. When I say president, so it is a tent, and it will never protect you. It's not a concrete,
Right.
and when I think about it, like like I just wonder how we survived this attack.
Mm.
3 people got killed and 7 got injured. 3 of them, had, that the doctors had no option just to amputate their legs. So, just to let you know that the hospital is also housing displaced people. Why the hospital is housing displaced people? That is because people has no place to go for. And when it comes to being displaced and you don't know where to go, people do believe that hospitals are just safe areas. So going to the hospital for seeking, like, let me say, the sense of security. And then, frankly, this hospital, this is the 9th time to be attacked. And when the army attacks a tent, it means that there are like at least 20 tents being destroyed, totally destroyed, because the fire and the flames, just goes around and destroy everything, because it's all about nylon and jute. And actually, like, I was holding my phone and I decided to film. I'm in the scene, like I'm exactly in the scene, and I tried to film what happened. And then actually, like, I was literally shaking. It's not my first time to be at such scenes, but each time feels as the first time, because you will never cope with this ever. And then when I got it closed after they just extracted the casualties and they like delivered them to the emergency room, I went, to the bombed area. And then, okay, I decided, like, خلاص, يعني, I have to do this documenting. I have to document this. I'm here. I'm on time. And still there is a smoke, and there is also, the blood is everywhere and the destruction. So I was like, hey, today is blah, blah, blah. Then I stopped. The smell, like, was literally unbearable. I couldn't even like to take a deep breath. And that smell, I was trying to ignore this smell. And I tried, like, for the second time to ignore it, but it is the same smell that I smelled it when they attacked us and killed my husband. So I got that sense. Like, what is the purpose of documenting if people around, like, outside of Gaza, are unable to smell the smell of death? which is a mixture of blood, gunpowder, concrete, destruction.
So
So
how do you answer that question, Shrouq? Because you pose it to yourself often of if you can't convey that, then why do you continue doing what you're doing?
I felt depressed actually at that day, and I decided to not film and document. Maybe because I have, a bad experience in this. Like, it really reminded me of that day of losing my husband. And, sometimes there are some things when it comes to that moment of losing the dear one, you will never, ever, like, forget it. So maybe I'm quite emotional about this, because I've been there, I've felt it, I've been part of this.
Yes.
But, the other day I went to complete my coverage because, okay, I tried to relax for a few hours, but it's never about relaxing. I started to go more with overthinking and remembering that day, that moment, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then I found out, like, I have to beat my feelings. Otherwise, I cannot continue.
Can we talk about Rushdie?
Yeah, sure.
For a little while. You've just recently marked the first year since your husband's killing, and I'm very sorry for your loss. What could you talk about what made you decide in the aftermath that you would take over from Rushdie after he died?
All right. Can I just mention how he got killed? And then I
Absolutely.
go,
Yep.
yeah, sure. All right. When this war started, Rushdie and I and our little daughter, she was 11 months old. We were traveling abroad. It was our 5th day of being abroad. I had work in Saudi Arabia and he had work in Qatar. So we decided to start first with Saudi Arabia and to do, the Umrah, that act of a religious prayer, and then a pilgrim. And then we decided after that, I go to my work in Saudi Arabia. He moves to his work in Qatar. But what happened that the 7th of October just came, and we decided immediately to cancel everything and just return back to Gaza. So we got back to Gaza in the 8th of October. So we did not witness the 7th of October because we were abroad. So we arrived to Gaza at the 8th of October, and we decided to not stay at our apartment because it is a roof and it is in the 7th floor. When it comes to attacks, like with each explosion, your building, if you are, in a higher floor, it means like you will be shaking all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the building, and also that risk of the artillery missiles and also the risk of the shambles. So we decided to stay at his family home. And Rushdie said, like, he will keep doing the coverage. I do the coverage from home because we have Dania, she's baby, she's an infant, and I do breastfeeding. And also he go for coverage.
He works outside in the field.
Yeah, and I do the written one in terms of articles and so. All right. So at by the morning of the 22nd of October, which is almost the second week of this genocide, Rushdie was going to do some coverage inside an ambulance, and I was somehow hesitated. Like, ambulances are super risky, and they every day the Israeli army keeps attacking ambulances, and I'm not feeling comfortable about you doing the coverage inside the ambulance. And he said, if I did not do it, who will do it? It's a duty. I was like, okay, all right. I totally understand. It's never easy. Like you have your partner just leaving to follow the attacks and do the coverage around. It's super risky. But I have that. I'm a journalist, so I can understand his feelings when it comes to go for documenting. So he was preparing himself, and we were eating breakfast along with his family. until we heard a very close explosion that made the table move. So, when it comes, there is that carpet pumping. I know it is such a new concept, the carpet pumping, but it is a series of non-stopping pumpings, like almost, and sometimes it takes hours. So when we are saying about carpet pumpings, it means they are attacking a total neighborhood, so they are like attacking like a house after house, like erasing the entire neighborhood. So we heard very loud, massive explosions. So we decided just to run to the ground floor. We were 8 together, and I was holding my baby Tanya in my hand. I was holding his hand in my right hand, and because of being so stressed, I felt somehow, in a plank, let me say, he just moved from being beside me and moved in front of me and Dania, our little baby, and he just did the same way. He just shielded us.
Trying to
And
protect
then
you.
he just literally he stood in front of us and gave us a shield for, like after 2 seconds of being him shielding us. I was like wondering, what are you doing, And then everything went into gray. At that moment, I personally, when you are inside the pumping, you don't hear the explosion because
So
of
that's the
the
explosion that
pressure.
hit your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did not hear it, and I'm still standing. I'm okay. I'm not feeling that there is something that's hurting me or like falling on my head. And let me say, like everything went into gray. I thought that my sugar pressure is getting down because of being so stressed. And then I started to hear to smell the gunpowder. Then the vision started to be more clear. So I tried to wipe out to look for my husband. So he was not around, but I'm still holding my baby. I feel her, and she's not crying, but she's moving. So I felt she's okay. Then I was trying just to move, but I was unable to move. There is lots of things on my legs. I tried to pull it. I didn't know what is on my legs. I tried to pull it, and then it is Rushdie. Like he was collapsing up on my legs. And there is also concrete, lots of ripples around. So along with his siblings, we carried him and moved outside the house, and we tried to call the hospital, the ambulances, just to come, to rescue him. He was gasping, he was alive. And the ambulances, they said, we are sorry, the entire neighborhood is under attack. The area is super dangerous. We cannot come. So we have to wait until this carpet bombing ends so we can come to rescue you.
Yes.
I was like, this actually brought me into, like, this drives me crazy. Like, you are not coming to, like, he's dying. So I called my brother. He's a doctor. I tried to hold my temper as much as I can because otherwise, there's no time to scream or to collapse. There is a case. You have to see, to give a treatment as much as you can. And I believe like every second equals a life at such moment. So I called my brother. He's a doctor. Like, hello, they pumped us. Rushdie got injured, severely injured. He got a crack in his head, like almost 1.5 centimeters. Nothing is outside. He's bleeding so much, but I can see his brain from inside. Literally, I was seeing his brain from inside. So I was like asking my brother, what shall I do? And the ambulances are not coming for us. He told me like, try just to walk to the hospital and there's nothing you can do for this. So I recognized at that very moment that we are losing him. He was causing, by the way, he was still alive. But the neuro doctors here specialize in neurosystems, and so there are just very few here in Gaza. And when it comes to emergencies and genocide, you will never get lucky to find anyone who's just free
So,
and available to do the
so you
training.
walked to the hospital?
We walked to the hospital. We carried him. We put him in a blanket, and we walked to the hospital. And guess what? Like we walked, and everything, like in the both sides, were just collapsing and destroying because they kept bombing the area. And we kept walking until we arrived to the hospital after 15 minutes. And once we arrived to the emergency, like after 5 minutes, he passed away.
Sure.
So
I
yeah.
can't imagine the pain with which an event like that produces. And that is, it goes to the heart of the question I was asking, which is, you've said repeatedly that you have not had a chance to grieve your husband, and yet you've taken the very difficult decision to take his place. I wonder, why, knowing the risks and knowing how difficult the job is, why did you decide, despite all of this, despite the pain, to keep going?
All right, Rich, they spent like almost like I can say like he spends his life in growing this company and building it, and it is just one of the most popular and known companies in Palestine. And he established this company along with his best friend Yasser Murtaja. Just to let you know that Yasser Murtaja got killed in 2019. He was documenting the Great March of Return, which is a demonstration like Gazans used to do, for demanding for their rights, for the rights of return to the occupied territories. And he got directly hit by a sniper. And after 5 years of the murder of Yasser, the Israeli army attacked Rushdie. So the two co-founders of this company are now killed by the Israeli army. And I was on the peak, like shall I go forward, or shall I just keep it, even to consider this company just killed along with the co-founders? It was never easy, especially there are lots of hardships.
The headquarters itself was also destroyed of the company.
It is. Yeah. What is it?
Yeah, the headquarters as well was destroyed.
Partially destroyed.
Yeah.
So, it's never easy to continue, especially at such circumstances. But, that sense, like this company is established for pure reasons and purposes. And I will not be the one who is stopping it, because I have the power to keep leading this and continuing the coverage. So I went for this, and it's never easy. Till this moment, it's never easy.
The title of this lecture, just to remind everyone, is Dying to Tell a Story. You, Shrouq, are putting your life on the line every single time you go out. Where do you draw the line?
Let me say, sometimes frankly, I have recently in this world, I have two personalities just inside me. Shrouq, the journalist, and Shrouq, the mom. So when I go to do some coverage, sometimes just, yes, this is what I want to capture, this angle, this story, and I keep going. And even if it is just risky, and I believe I've been in let me say in dangerous situations many times, and every time I just wonder how I survived it. And sometimes I just stop, there's something inside me just stopped me, because reminding me that, true, your daughter just lost her father, and she got her enough. Don't lose your life because of your daughter. I raised up without my parents because they died in an early age. So I really understand what does it mean to be raised up as an orphan, and I will never want my daughter to go through all of this. Yeah, I believe like losing her father is, it's such a milestone. It's such a, I cannot put it in words actually, but I try as much as I can to take care of my life, not because of me, but because of her.
You've spoken and you've put on your social media how exhausted all of you as journalists are. And you even went as far at one point as saying that you said, I demand that foreign journalists be allowed to enter and cover this war. What do you think? How would that help? What do you think they can do that you cannot?
Okay, because since this war started, journalists have been paying the highest price, their lives for their reporting without protection, equipment, international presence, and also communications or food and water. They are still doing their critical job to tell the world the truth. And every time a journalist is killed, injured, arrested, or forced to go to exile to get displaced, we lose fragments of the truth. And those responsible for these casualties face dual trials, like one under international law and another before history's forgiving Gaza. So journalists are civilians and are protected by international law, directly targeting. And during this genocide, it's been like almost plus 180 journalists have been killed since the beginning of this genocide. And for somehow, after 1 year and 1 month of being under genocide with non-stopping bombings, non-stopping, overthinking and stress over everything and being anxious all the time, let me say that no word just left to address it to the people. So sometimes I feel like we need international journalists. They have to make a pressure to come to Gaza to do the coverage because we are super exhausted. Like every journalist in Gaza lost something. If it is a house, a dear one, equipment, even the state of mind as well, and we try as much as we can to hold on and being resilient enough to be functioning in an appropriate way, but we are super exhausted. And there must be like for example, if we are like following up the wars around the world, there's always that space for foreigner journalists to go to do the coverage, but when it comes to Gaza, we are just trapped. And also, like, let me say, we are like, it's been almost like 1 year of being live streamed slaughter in all ways on the screen, and nothing is happening. So we need someone else to do the narrative, to address the audience. Maybe this might make a change.
You make me think about, there's been so much coverage coming out of Gaza. So many new journalists, some of them don't have the kind of training that you have, but they are learning kind of on the job. They're reporting on social media, a whole younger generation who, as you say, are live streaming what is going on, of what is happening in Gaza. Do you feel like, and yet the war goes on, as you say, do you feel like people would distrust or discount Palestinian journalists? Is that the sense that you have, given that everything goes on, continues?
Not literally, actually. Like I've receiving lots of supporting messages from followers, from people that I don't know, from like several nationalities. So I believe that we are making a change. And it's been like Israel spent years in creating and building its propaganda. And guess what? Israel itself ruined its propaganda during this war, because you know, what is happening in the media and screened in the media is totally obvious. You cannot say, you know, like according to the statistics so far, like 70% of the casualties in Gaza Strip are mostly kids, children, and women. Those are the bank of targets of Israel. So let me say, like I can convince like the Palestinian cause is getting more in the peak and getting more in the surface, and we are getting the loads of support and empathy, but still we are under genocide.
I have just a few more questions, but we're soon going to go to audience questions. So it's just a reminder to the audience, if you have questions, please drop those in the next little while so we can get to those shortly. But before we go there, Shrouq, I wanted to ask you, you know, you live in a relatively conservative part of the Middle East. I used to also work out of Gaza more than a decade ago. At the time, there were very few women who were doing what you're doing. I wonder if you could talk about what changed. There are so many women now, like yourself, who are doing this work.
All right, because um, somehow, like, let me say, uh, we are superheroes. You know, we are tired superheroes, very exhausted superheroes. But um, let me say, it's not, you know, being a journalist is not something just totally biased and totally, you know, classified for the men. Absolutely not. We do have lots of well-known journalists, correspondents, producers, and so here in Gaza. And like in the past, let me say, in the past decade, the role of the Palestinian women in Gaza, especially, like, is being totally obvious in the surface. Like, we are, you know, like sometimes people are getting more, let me say, more confused about like there is the that we believe that there is no gender equality and there is no space for the women in the media and work and whatever. But absolutely, this is the opposite. We have the space and we have the power for this, and who can prevent us?
There are more women now, especially younger
Yeah,
women, taking part.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. You know, because it all comes from that sense of a theory that if you are having a skills or you are having a privilege in something, audience, followers, language, or whatever, just use it.
Mhm.
Turn it in a platform. Speak up.
You once said that being a journalist is a lifelong condition, for lack of a better word. A sentence for
Yeah.
life is the words you used. How do you think about your journalism? Why do you call it a sentence for life?
Because you cannot just separate yourself about the stories that you are filming. Like each time you do filming, you know, like each time I feel like I'm hearing my pain in several, like in different words from the story that I'm filming with, you know, and like I'm seeing myself in someone else's story. So that's why I'm telling it is a sentence for life because you will never escape of what you are feeling inside, like because the stories will hit you and you will never get back home, not stopping thinking about that mom who lost three sons or about that man who being in the jail for blah 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 and being tortured and the, you know, you cannot just separate yourself being from the stories that you are featuring because you are living under the same circumstances and I could be this person. And when it comes of, you know, featuring that stories of losing a dear one, like sometimes I just film and gas about how this person is articulating his grief, how he or she reflects the pain inside him or her. And I can relate to this pain because I'm, you know, like I used to feature stories, but in a way or another, I'm a story as well.
You're a story as well. That's a very apt way to describe yourself. There have been a number of Palestinian journalists from Gaza who have left Gaza, who decided that it was too much. I'm wondering whether you've thought about leaving, and if not, and if so, what's stopping you from taking your daughter and leaving Gaza?
Um, I love Gaza. I deeply love Gaza. Like before getting married, I got lots of, let me say, opportunities to and scholarships as well to be upright. I traveled a lot actually, but each time I travel, I try as much as I can to not make it like a plus 1 month trip because I feel homesick. Like I am deeply rooted in Gaza, and I try as much as I can to get back to Gaza in very few days. So even after getting married to Rushdie, he's sharing with me the same sense of loving Gaza, and because we believe it's our land, you know, he's very talented. And sorry, I'm not going to talk about him in the past tense. I'm sorry. He's very talented, and I'm not gonna say that I am a talent person, but I have some skills, and we have the ability to, to raise our business outside of Gaza Strip. You know, Gaza suffering of the siege, blockade, and the attacks, blah blah blah. But we never like we choose to be, to be the people who are trying to rebuild this city, and to to be part in this city. And if there is anything that we can do it, we do it to the land first, then to ourselves. So why I did not leave Gaza so far, the borders are closed since 6 months so far, but before this 6 months, I decided not to leave. Especially there are lots of people who contact me and try to convince me just to leave Gaza. But um, let me say, I don't want my daughter to live in such circumstances. Absolutely not. I've never wished this for her. But somehow I'm feeling that like I'm betraying my husband if I'm just leaving without him. This is number one. Number two, I believe that I will do better in terms of documenting when I am in Gaza. I'm running the company. I have to do lots of documentations, and being abroad will not be as the same as being inside Gaza. So it is that call of duty that you can do something, you do it.
Shrouq, thank you for taking my questions. I have a few from the audience, so I'd like to get into those. But just a reminder to the audience that you can submit your questions using the QR code to reach the Slido app. That's where you can put your questions if you're watching us on YouTube. The first one that came through is, here we go. As a journalist, how do you effectively educate the people that may be chronically misinformed about this conflict? That's a big question.
Okay, it's a very borrowed one, but whenever I do documentation, I try to start from the teeny little information, to start it from the floor, and then I go to the bigger image, because I believe people who are just outside of Gaza, they don't have that sense about what does it feel in being, in Gaza. So I try to give some information that the media is not paying attention for, like, for example, to visualize some facts and put it together in this documentation so the audience can get more vivid vision about what is being inside. And sometimes I try just to convey the feelings as well, so the audience can feel they are living this, or they are feeling that sense.
Okay, thank you. Another question is wanting more detail about what it was like for you. You talked a little bit about what it was like to live in a tent with several other people, but what was it like doing your job, working out of a tent? How did you charge your equipment? Where did you go for internet? Like, how did you do the
Okay.
daily mechanics of work when you were living in a tent?
All right. So when I don't work at tent for sure. I just try as much as I can just to hide my laptop and camera. Otherwise, the kids gonna break it up. You know, they are jumping everywhere, and it's the tent is just very small. So I just try to escape my items. Otherwise, it will be destroyed. So I try to finish everything outside the tent, and um as I mentioned before, there is that breast tent location that provides electricity, power, and internet. So I try to finish my work before I get back to the tent. Otherwise, you know, I cannot, because you know the tent is super crowded. You know, there is always that noise that you will never focus on your work, and also there is no internet in a decent internet connection. You know, at the tent I just had the maximum good internet. It is just to do texting, so it's never about doing anything. So when I am at the tent, I just sometimes I do filming. I film how it feels like to cook in a tent, to the bathroom, the location, the how we put our clothes, blah blah blah. But it is just about, you know, some filmings in the daylight. Otherwise, there's no space to do your work probably.
This is an interesting one. Do you think there's an issue with those looking from outside the conflict feeling pity rather than empathy for the people of Gaza?
You know, it's really like, if it is so, it is such a disappointment question. You know, we have been slaughtered for over 1 year, and it's really disappointing just to receive fitness, you know, and what we are just waiting for is action. So I don't know. I feel speechless sometimes. It's kind of disappointment. I feel it, like, you know, like people are being killed at, you know, during this meeting. I believe if I grabbed my phone, I will find out there is a massacre somehow around. Also, during this meeting, I'm hearing explosions and bombings around. It's not super close, but you know, I can hear it. It is in the far, not super far, but I can hear it. And then, like we're not expecting fitness. I'm sorry, but we're not expecting this.
Yes. Here's another question. What do you think is the most effective way citizens in Western countries can support journalists in Gaza?
All right. The first thing is for the international journalists to make a pressure in the media and on the governments to keep pushing to come for coverage. And you know, if they come for coverage, by this we will have production for us as being a journalist. This is number one. Number two, having lots of marches, demonstrations in the streets, you know, some boycotting the Israeli goods, you know, each time you buy something of that it goes directly from the traitor to the Israeli army, then our heads. So boycotting, demonstrating, and also keep pushing in the media, keep it on, try as much as you can to speak up and educate the people, because I believe, like, it's been 1 year and I believe there are still people are unacknowledged about what is happening. So keep the word up.
A couple more questions here. What do you think in this era of technology makes the coverage of this conflict different from others in the past?
I already mentioned this, that we are like live streamed slaughtering. Like, there are lots of massacres have been like streamed in the media, live streamed in media, and there are lots of let me say, the appeals for aid. Like, people are seeing how the harshness of being displaced in tents, and people are suffering of starvation as well, especially those who are living in the north. Like if it's been like almost ages of not seeing vegetables. Like here in the south, it's been almost 2 months of not having vegetables in the market because Israel is cutting the aid and the goods to come inside Gaza, and we are running out of the flour, for example. So the famine is hitting in the south. It's already hit in the north since the beginning of the genocide, and it's all featured in the media, like in reporting and documentaries and stories and reels and social media pages and in all the means of these advanced technologies. And we are expecting an action actually, even though like we are losing hope. Sometimes I lose my hope in humanity, but I still have that teeny side that there will be a change for sure. I'm still sticking to that hope. Even I believe it's not coming true, but it will come.
Shrouq, I just have one final question, unless anybody else in the audience has any further ones, is, part of the audience and for this moment, but also later, who'll be listening and watching this broadcast will be journalism students. And so we're wondering if you could speak to them directly, what piece of advice you'd have for journalism students about doing the kind of work that you are doing.
All right. Don't, like literally, don't frame yourself with the governments, the policies, or the parties or whatever. Don't frame yourself for those parties, because if you are like framing yourself for a party or a government, so you are following this blindly and documenting in a blind way, so you are not telling the truth, so you are informating people, and so you are losing your professionality in being a journalist. So try to be an independent one in terms of featuring the realities. And when it comes to conflict areas, try to educate yourself as much as you can about the two sides. Then you decide which side you go for. Let me say that don't follow whatever side without educating yourself about the current situation. Because people eventually will blame you, because if you are a journalist, people are trusting your narrative. So don't mislead the people.
Maintain independence is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have one very last one from the audience. Do you ever let yourself think about the future and what can come in the next few days, months, or years?
Frankly, no, because I cannot guarantee that I'm living for the second 2 minutes actually. So thinking of what I have to do list for tomorrow is somehow is applicable, but like having plans for after tomorrow is too much for me, when it comes to work. Like it's too much, like, oh sure, this is 2 days, you currently you will be alive for 2 days. It's too much. So no, I cannot think about the future. Because you are under genocide, you are not securing yourself, your safety, your life. You might lose your life at any moment. So no guarantees.
Shrouq, thank you very much for taking my questions and the audience questions. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, and thank you for the audience. I hope really I've been informative in a way or another, and you are okay with what you heard so far. I'm so sorry if I brought negative feelings for you, but it's a genocide.
Thank you, Shrouq.
Thank you.
Alan, back to you.
Thank you. So this brings our event to a close. But before we depart, I have to thank all those who've helped to make this happen. Our partners at CBC Ideas, the Stursberg family, my colleagues at Carleton and beyond who've helped to produce this technically, and our moderator, Nala. But most of all, Shrouq, I had written down some words to say to you, and I kind of feel like they don't matter anymore. I don't know quite what to say beyond thank you for what you're doing in journalism. Thank you for taking the time and being with us today and sharing your story and sharing what's happening and helping us to try to understand a little bit better what's happening in Gaza, what's unfolding around you. I've been involved with this profession for almost 40 years, and I have to say I am in awe of what you're doing. And I'm so glad that we were able to connect with you today and to hear from you and to share this. You talk about so many things that I'll keep, but when you talk about the sense of smell, and I think the smells that I remember are like the cookies that my grandmother made or the Christmas tree. Like, that's my privilege. Those are the smells that I carry with me. And when you talked about the smell of dust and blood and gunpowder and concrete in that hospital and how that took you back to the moment of your husband's death and that personal family tragedy, I'll carry that with me forever. And so thank you for the power of your message and what you had to say, and for sharing it with us today. And I hope we can meet in person sometime. It would be a real pleasure to host you in person. Finally, thank you to everyone who was watching this virtually. And if you want to refer back to anything from today, we will be posting a complete recording of today's event to Carleton's website. And with that, it does bring our afternoon to a close. And I hope everyone can enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see many of you tomorrow, same time, same place, for the second installment in this lecture series from Gideon Levy of Haaretz. So once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you especially to you, Shrouq. And I bid everyone a good day.